live sessions. It's great to be here. My name is Jacob. I'm your host. I've been here for the past 6-7 weeks as we've chatted through what it means to follow Jesus, what it means to have a life with him, what it means to be a disciple. That's a big word, but it basically means, what it's somebody who's striving to be more like Jesus day in and day out. But let's introduce the people I've got here with me. I've got Bella. Give us a wave, Bella. And I've got Marianne. Hello, Marianne.
Hi.
How are you guys doing? You guys doing okay?
Yeah, good, thank you. Good, thank you.
We were both great. Pardon?
No, it doesn't matter.
We're all on lockdown right now. It's a strange time, even though we're about to come out next week. But how's it been for you guys? And with this last week, have you gained any knowledge, any need to know tips to help other people for their last week of lockdown?
I would say this week has been good.
Yes.
Marianne before, it's been quite Zoom filled.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And also tip, maybe like when you've come off a Zoom call, go outside, because
that's a great idea.
Because then you're not in position the whole day. Yes,
that's a great idea.
Saying, when the weather is good, go outside, because you don't know when the weather is going to be good again, and get some daylight. Just get some daylight. Get some daylight in your eyes. And also, I've discovered eye drops. I'm using a lot of eye drops at the moment because I'm spending so long. Well, I'm spending so long on my phone and on my screens and editing videos, because normally when you do a youth event, you just go and do a youth event. But I'm having to edit everything and stream everything. And so I'm using eye drops all the time. Eye strain. I'm getting old. This is the problem. I'm getting old.
Amazing. You know what's really helped me actually get out? We got a puppy like 6-7 weeks ago, and she needs to go, she has so much energy that she needs to go on at least 2 1-hour walks a day, sometimes sometimes at least a 2-hour walk. So that's got me out of the house.
Is your tip get a puppy?
Get a puppy. Yeah. But even when you're inside, then you've got the joy of a puppy, even though she does like chewing on my feet. And then it's very painful. Just to get to know everybody a little bit more, I have a question for you. It's a little bit deep, right? I want you to answer this as honestly as you can. Let me get this right. If you could live inside a Disney movie, what movie would it be and why?
Oh,
that's a hard one.
That's a lot of choice, though.
It's a lot of
Disney
choice.
Movies.
I'm trying to think of the girl power movies. I'm not so white.
Star Wars owned by Disney now?
Star Wars is owned by Disney now.
Oh, that's what I was thinking. I think I'd go Star Wars.
Star Wars. Okay, great. Any movie in particular?
I mean, there's some practical armor. Well, there's some practical armor going on. I quite like some, decent coverage, some armor. It's not warm at the moment. I quite like the idea of flying spaceships.
Yeah.
And I've got a bit of a hero complex, so that's quite good. And they visit a lot of planets, and some of the planets look quite nice. The one with the Ewoks. There's a lot of greenery. There's a lot of variety.
There is a lot of variety.
Yeah, for sure.
Hey, how bad is this? My mind immediately went to Disney Princess.
I'm all about variety.
Which Disney princess then?
I don't know. See, that's so bad because there are so many others. But I just love a good Disney princess. See, I don't know which is Merida from Brave.
Yeah, Brave. Pixar is part of
She
Disney.
counts.
That's who I'd be. I would be her, even though she looks more like my sister with the ginger.
She does.
I would be her.
That's
I
amazing.
like Scotland as well. Scotland is amazing. So
okay, great. I think I would choose Pirates of the Caribbean because they're some of my favorite movies. I'm terrified of the ocean though. I'm terrified. I'm not a good swimmer, but I just love that whole sailing on a boat visiting new places the
with
same.
the costume, maybe you could overcome that fear, Jacob.
With the costume? Yeah. Amazing. This week we're talking about adventure. So I wanted to ask you is, can you think of what's one of the biggest adventures you've ever been on in your life?
Oh, I've been on quite a lot of adventures.
Okay.
Again, I've probably got significantly more years to my life than Bella has, so I've had a lot more chance. I've done quite a lot of international missions, which have been quite adventurous.
Awesome.
But I think the biggest adventure that I've done is, and this sounds really odd, is that about 3, maybe 4 years ago, I believe that God told me to move back home, which sounds like the least adventurous thing to do. But
we've lost you for a second, Mariana. Hello, we lost you.
I took my kids
out
of school and we all moved. Can you hear me?
Wow. No. Yeah, we can hear you now.
Am I back now?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the reason you lost me is my internet is not very good because I live in the middle of nowhere, because we moved back in with my dad and he lives on a 4-acre small holding.
That's crazy.
So the plan is that this time last year I was living in a shed with no heating. And we are setting up our own charity on the land to employ adults with learning difficulties. We've got no experience of this, no background of this, and we've got 4 acres of brambles to clear.
Wow, that sounds fun.
But we believe this is what God asked us to do. So
that sounds like a proper adventure, a scary one.
We gave up our perfectly good jobs and a very nice house. And moved into a shed for 2 years.
I was going to say, imagine if like the corona pandemic hit when you were living in that shed. That would have been a difference.
Well, yeah, that would have been dreadful. But what would be worse is if we would have lived, if the corona pandemic had hit when I still lived in my old house, because my dad would have been here alone.
Oh, wow.
And he would not have been able to get out. So it was okay timing.
Yeah.
The shed thing was a challenge.
Yes.
That's crazy. What about you, Bella?
Yeah.
So for me, you'll know this one, Jacob, because I went with you.
Yes.
To Kenya. Kenya was probably the best adventure I've ever been on.
Yeah.
It was also a mission thing with a Christian organisation, and they have a really amazing orphanage, and we went there, and that was really cool. But in the UK, I climbed up Ben Nevis, and that's pretty good for me.
That is impressive.
That's pretty good.
Yeah,
that's impressive.
With the Scottish theme as well. So.
Yes.
One of my biggest adventures is, I don't know why we did it, but in high school, I grew up in Mexico, and in high school, every single year they did a, was it every single year, or was this a one-off? I don't know. They did, basically Mexico's like got the big main part, and then it's got this big peninsula. And the smallest part of the peninsula is like 100 kilometers, like just over 100 kilometers. And we drove 12 hours down to that thing, to that part of the peninsula, and walked across it.
Oh, cool.
Over 3 days.
Wow.
Like through just like, do you know, like when you see movies where it's just desert wasteland? Like it was like that, just desert, cactus, and like the vultures flying overhead, rattlesnakes. And so we had to like walk 30-40 kilometers, make camp, figure out our tent, cook our food, then walk. And it was a big adventure. I think I was like 16 or 17. It was a lot. But yeah, we're talking about adventures today, and you know, if you're watching this and you're part of you know, you saw one of the bands come into your school a few years ago, or maybe you know, you saw one of our videos in your school. The Higher Tour is a great example of what, you know, it's like going on adventure with God. You know, each of the bands, you've got Amongst Wolves and Brightline, OTC and Soulbox, were involved in that tour, you know, made up of Christians who love Jesus, who want to share their faith with others. But not all Christians are in bands. Are you in a band, Bella? Are you in a band, Marianne?
I wish I was.
No.
No, definitely not.
That's the thing though, but we're not all in bands, and it's not all about, you know, being on stage. Some people may have the opportunity to do this, but lots of us don't. And that doesn't mean you're any less important, you know, to God's mission or to his rescue to the world. And I found this thing that's really interesting, right? It's called the 6 degrees of separation. And basically the theory goes that it's possible for you to be connected to anybody else in the world through just 6 people. So like you're connected to your friend's friends because you're friends with them. Does that make sense? So you're connected to anybody else in the world via, you know, this 6 degrees of separation. And so what would happen if we started to share our faith with our networks of friends, you know, and if they met Jesus and chose to follow him too, and then they shared their faith, like I think we'd see hundreds and thousands and millions of people, you know, be introduced to Jesus for the first time, you know, and that's how it's always worked. You know, Jesus didn't go out to the masses and masses and masses. His ministry only lasted for 3 years, and then he left it with 12 people who went on to tell people. And now there's over 2 billion people alive today who call themselves Jesus followers. And it's nearly Christmas. I absolutely love Christmas. When is it too early to start putting up a Christmas tree?
Never too
Never. You're around Christmas tree.
I am a Christmas tree
June.
Right now.
You are. June, amazing. Well, we're about to put up our Christmas tree this week, and at Christmas, I'm sure, you know, everybody watching knows is that it's celebrating Jesus coming to earth. Yes, we get presents. Yes, Santa's involved, but the reason Christmas started was that celebrating the time when Jesus came to earth. You know, and he didn't choose to enter the earth, you know, through a massive fanfare and just take over the government, but he chose to share his love with ordinary people like shepherds and fishermen and slaves, and they were just as valuable to his plan to see the whole world brought into relationship with him. You know, we're all part of that plan, each and every one of us. You know, whether you are watching this video for the very first time, you stumbled across this by accident, well, welcome. Jesus absolutely loves you. Once we make that decision to follow him, it's all part of God's plan for us to share him with everybody around us. You know, and it's all part of an adventure. You know, adventures have high points, adventures have low points. So I think it'll be interesting to hear from you guys, like what are some, you know, maybe high points in your life, you know, your walk with Jesus, but what are some of your low points, and how have you gotten from those low points and taken your eyes from your feet and back onto Jesus, if that makes sense?
I think for me, one of the lowest points that I've had was during this adventure that we've been going through for the last few years, when the building company that we employed to renovate our house, they vanished and they stole a lot of our money, life
That's
savings,
crazy.
basically. And one day they just didn't turn up. They didn't pay any of their workers. They didn't pay us in a financial mess, and they left us distraught and living in a shed. And it was horrible. And I was more scared than I've been, partly because I thought it felt like this was all my idea, and it felt like I had bankrupted everybody, basically. And it was the lowest, I think, the most I've been scared for my mental health and my financial health and my family. But actually what happened is that we met new people to work with, people who were kind and people who were good, and we supported local workmen, and we helped local workmen to get new qualifications by working on our house, and we made, you know, lifelong connections and lifelong friends in a way that we wouldn't have done if everything had gone according to our plan. And I felt like I was back in control of things, where I'd felt absolutely spiraling out of control in a way that I couldn't see how we could come back from. And I felt like it was actually, in the long term, a gift. And it felt like now the house that I lived in has been made by friends and has been made by good, trustworthy people, and that the money that we ended up paying out to other people, to other workmen, has, you know, paid for children's ballet lessons and has supported, like I say, supported men who are trying to work. It's paid their bills and it's got them qualifications, and it's actually every penny has gone to good people, which I really value.
Wow.
And so that was quite a roller coaster from what I thought God had asked me to do, to going crashingly, horrifically wrong, to actually coming good.
Yeah, that's incredible.
And positive.
Wow.
Again, it was quite extreme.
Yeah, for sure.
It's been an extreme time.
Yeah. It's so interesting how God sometimes flips situations to, you know, even though when a situation feels like it's worse, that he flips it, to bring him glory. That's amazing. Bella, can you think of, you know, any examples or any thoughts come to your mind?
Yeah, I think actually, so I'm doing gap year at the moment with an organisation called Youth for Christ in the UK, but I was actually planning on going on an adventure. Not that this isn't one, but I thought God had spoke to me about I've got a real passion for anti-trafficking, and I wanted to go and do that in Chicago in America, but obviously because of coronavirus, and so I changed my plans a number of times, and because I thought maybe this one was better, and then it all stopped, and I was like, oh, what does God want us to do? And I was a bit like confused, and I was a bit upset because I was like, oh, I planned this for quite a while. Obviously couldn't have helped it, no, but God has used this year. I've met some amazing people, and people who I probably am more likely to stay connected with because they're in the UK. And that actually I'm close to my friends from home, and it's been I've been able to see that actually, yes, God can send you out on mission, but actually he needs you here too, to share Jesus with other people. So yeah,
for sure. That's so good.
So he's definitely worked this situation out for a good
it's crazy. I think that go ahead.
It's good, isn't it?
Did you want to say something else? Oh, we may have lost you again.
A few years ago when I was am I back? Yeah, it keeps.
Yes, you're back.
And so a few years ago when I was working, I was working full time for a church a few years ago, and the youth group really wanted to go on like an international mission, and we looked at every option we had going, and they really felt they wanted to go to Greece and work with refugees, and then the whole thing fell through. And what we ended up doing was contacting some other churches, just sending out an email to other churches saying, if you had a youth group, what would you do with them for a week? And so we rented out our youth group to 2 different churches. We did 1 week in a little tiny little church in Essex.
Amazing.
We ran a holiday club for them, and we worked for another church down in Plymouth where we did all sorts of social action. We ended up working in a homeless shelter and old people's homes and all this stuff. There's no way we would have done. It was not glamorous and it was not international, but it was what we believed that God went, you think you want to do this? I don't want you to. What I want you to do is go and serve people. And we've all made connections with those people and those churches, and we changed those churches as well. So it changed us and those churches that were feeling a bit worn out. And then we went in there and just blasted through everything they wanted done. And still in contact with them in a way that we wouldn't have been if we'd gone to peace. So God knows what he's doing when we don't.
For sure. Amazing. Okay, just to break it up for a minute, to get to know you both a little bit more. Bella, would you rather have £1 million in the bank or an IQ of above 145, which is, like Einstein?
An IQ of above.
Amazing.
Because then I think you could have both.
You figure out how to get the million. I love that. All right, Marianne, would you rather live with a live-in massage therapist or a live-in chef?
Oh, massage therapist.
Okay.
I'm quite a good cook. So
okay.
My kitchen is my domain.
Yeah.
So I'm fine with that. So I can do all the cooking. I do all the cooking. It's all I ever do. But I could quite do, and I've got a bit of a crick in my neck.
Perfect. Amazing. Bella, would you rather have a pet pig or a pet goat?
Ooh. Can it be a pygmy pig?
Sure. Is that the tiny one?
Yeah, because I think I would be quite scared of goats. They've got like horns
and they headbutt people as well.
And that's no one would want to come to my house. Like, not that they would if I had a pig, but I think I'd be more of an attraction.
Yeah, true. Okay, Marianne, would you rather be 4 foot tall or 8 feet tall?
I think 4 foot tall.
4 foot tall.
It's more practical.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm quite tall already, and I have difficulty getting jeans.
Yeah.
I'm about 4.
Oh.
I'm joking.
So I think
this is my height.
It's easier to make clothes shorter than it is to add bits on.
To add bits on, yeah, for sure.
Long clothes are very expensive. I spend a lot on some of my long clothes.
Long clothes.
Long clothes.
Okay, 2 more questions, real quick. Would you rather be a famous musician or a famous actor, Bella?
Oh, I don't know. I like drama. So, an actor, but then there's a lot of things they have to do which I wouldn't feel like,
comfortable doing.
Jump off a house. I'd be like, no, you don't want
just get a stunt double.
Oh, true.
Yeah, okay. sorted. All right, last one, Marianne. Would you rather be able to play 10 different instruments beautifully or speak 10 different languages fluently?
Oh. I think the languages.
Yeah. I feel like that would come in really helpful. Like if you spoke English, French.
That's difficult. I think the languages would come in helpful.
Yeah.
I can't think of 10 instruments.
I can guarantee there are at least 10 instruments in the world, Bella.
Okay. Yes, I know there are.
There are definitely.
I just can't.
Could I go
half and half? Go on.
Can I have 5 instruments and 5 languages?
Yeah, that sounds
great.
Can
I be a mediocre actor and a mediocre player of instruments?
Yeah, that sounds great. Let's break all the rules. Anyways, let's jump back into this. So, Jesus asks us to join his adventure and he makes his call, personal to us. He doesn't usually expect us to be able to do something that doesn't match our skill set, like becoming a film actor if you hate speaking in front of people, or becoming a professional football player if you've got 2 left feet. But he asks us what we can bring and he turns it into something amazing. That's not to say that he won't challenge us, but he always takes what we can bring. And when Jesus started his ministry, he didn't go to like the synagogues and choose all of like the people who knew the Bible the best. He didn't choose to go to all the scientists or the cleverest people. He went and he called 2 fishermen, Peter and Andrew, and he said, I'm going to make you fishers of men. And there's a Bible in the story. Nope, there's a story in the Bible, which is amazing. And Jesus goes out to the country and he's teaching, over 5,000 people, and they're standing on this small hill and he's teaching, doing amazing miracles. And all the people are like, wow, this guy is amazing. But the disciples suddenly come to Jesus and go, Jesus, we need to send these people home because it's going to, get late and they're not going to be able to find any food. And he says to them, why don't you feed them? And they're like, what? We don't have anything. And they So they found this little boy who'd been clever enough to bring his lunchbox, and he had 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread. And Jesus took that and he blessed it. And then he said, go and feed the people. And it fed all of them with some left over. Remember, this is 2 fish, 5 loaves of bread. And it fed, over 5,000 people. Remember, Jesus took what all that he had and he used it to do something amazing. And you'd be like, oh, that's a cool story from the Bible. But I actually know somebody that happened to. They had gone on a trip and they built this family a house. And this family really wanted to bless the people who built them the house. And so they made them like a pot of chili. But they didn't have much money. That's the reason they were getting the house built for them. And they had this tiny little bit, and that would have fed maybe like 3 or 4 people. But they just kept serving the chili, and it fed every single person. I think there was like 30 or 40 people. It fed all of them until they were full. And then the chili ran out once everybody had as much as they'd wanted. So like God takes the small that we have and uses it to do something amazing. And there's so much that we can learn from these stories, aren't there? Like, can you think of any times in your life when you had what you felt like was maybe something small, you had just what you had, and God used it to do something amazing? The reason I'm in Manchester, the reason I'm in Brightline was I found a flyer for this course called the Message Academy, and I finished high school in Mexico, and I said, I think I need to do this, and I flew over to Manchester, and I've been here for like 8 years now. Like, God took just that decision, and I've been able to tour all over the UK. I went to Kenya with Bella and a bunch of other people. Like, we've been to Slovakia, we've been to Norway and Germany, we've been to high schools and told so many people about Jesus. And all it took was me to say, actually, yes, God, I'm going to do that thing you're asking me to do. What about you guys?
Firstly, I would say, can I have that? I'm going to put that chili pot on my Christmas list.
It's a great idea.
I would say, actually, so I've got a twin, and I remember going through a period of time, and I used to be quite like jealous of her. And I used to be like, oh, she's like so good at art, and like she's so good at, she'd have subjects at school that she'd really excel at, and I was kind of like average along all of them, and I was like, God, I don't know how you're gonna.
Hello.
Hey.
Sorry.
It's funny. I was like, I don't know how you're gonna use me, because like I'm average at everything. So I'm kind of saying to God, how there's stuff I love, but I'm not very good at it. And so I just was like, God, what are you calling me into? What are you wanting me to do with this? And I was like, at the time, I think the only books I read were like, I don't know, inspirational women books, or how has God used you, and things like that. And I was like, okay, I really like reading those books, but I just don't feel like those people. And I just remember God, like that kind of week, placing people and being like, oh, can you mentor this girl? And actually now I'm mentoring like 3 girls, and that's like
amazing
passion of mine. And I've got a blog, and that is also a passion of mine.
Amazing.
But that's grown, and as I've talked to God, and God's been like, look, you could do this. Like, you like writing, and you like this, so why not? So like, he has used me. I just needing to be open to him and being like, believe what he says about you. So yeah, that's
amazing. Love that.
I'm trying to think. It's quite interesting when you look back at things with hindsight, and things that felt like nothing particular of importance at the time. When I was about, I don't know, I was at university, so 20 odd. I went to Israel for the summer, and I was working with Youth with a Mission. And because I was doing a drama degree, I got put on a sort of a drama-y group that were working with a deaf group leader.
Wow.
And the idea was that because there's a huge deaf community in Israel, which I'd never heard of, because a lot of the Jews in Israel tend to marry cousins or quite close family. One of the things that happens if you have children with people who are too close to you in family is that you can end up having genetic problems. And one of the genetic problems that a lot of the Jews find is that they end up deaf.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a huge deaf community in Israel, and particularly in Jerusalem. And no one really sort of tries to educate them or tries to help them get jobs. And so they're quite isolated. And so I went out with this team who were doing drama in deaf groups and in deaf communities, and reaching out in a way that maybe no one else could, because if you're deaf, it's quite difficult to learn language. And so I went out, and my the deaf group leader said to me, for goodness sake, you've got to learn sign language, because you're all very flappy with your hands. And for someone who is deaf, it's just noise. You're just making noise. So learn what to do. And so I thought, well, okay, I find that quite interesting. And I started doing a sign language course. And so then I learned level 1 and level 2 sign language. And whilst I was doing level 2 sign language, I'd got married, and because it takes quite a long time to do each course. And I got married, and then by the time I was doing level 2 sign language, I'd gotten pregnant, and I had my son, and he was born with Down syndrome, which was a surprise. And then I discovered that actually you can use sign language for children with Down syndrome.
Wow.
And so I started teaching him sign language, and sign language was his first language. I mean, he's 14 now. He speaks perfectly ordinarily, but it really taught him how to communicate. But then I thought, well, I've done this with my son. How about I teach other people's children to use sign language? And for 6 years, I taught sign language to children and to babies, and communication skills. And I learned more and more about how your ears work and your communication develops. And I worked with loads of children teaching sign language. And I can do sign language in 2 different, so there's Makaton, which is the sign language for children with special needs, and then there's BSL. And I for 6 years I taught that, and then through that I ended up getting to hear about hearing dogs for the deaf, and I ended up training dogs, and the whole thing came together when I was taking hearing dogs that I was training to my sign language classes. And then we ended up training a dog in the last church I worked in. We ended up training a dog as a whole youth group. So the teenagers learned the sign language, the dog learned the sign language, and we had a whole service when the dog, she was called Flora, when she was finished her training and she was ready to go to her deaf recipient, the deaf lady, who was brilliant, I'm still friends with her, she came to the church. Some of the hearing dog staff came to the church, and we had a whole service which we adapted for deaf people. We had a whole service to commission the dog before she got sent off, and it ended up the whole church, the whole youth group, all doing sign language. And it all came from that one lady, 15 years earlier, telling me to learn sign language because I was flapping my hands around.
That's amazing. See, God takes what you have, just a small thing, and he uses it to do so many flappy hands.
My flappy, noisy jazz hands.
Amazing things. Amazing. Well, that's it for today. We've run out of time, but remember, God can use you no matter whether you think that you're the most talented or the most untalented person in the world. God wants to use the talents, the gifts that he has given you to tell people about him, whether that's your brothers, your sisters, your friends, your family. And make sure you check back next week. We've got one final session. We're going to be chatting about the 4 points, and it's going to be a way to help teach you guys on how to share the gospel. Have an amazing week. Bella, Marianne, thank you so much for being here with us.